So, our next topic is the silent features of the Coniferales. Okay, as you know, we are studying the orders of the Gymnosperms, and these orders are very much different from one another. And in each order, we are explaining the different types of the plants which are belonging to the particular orders of the Gymnosperms. Now, in this particular order of the Coniferales, we are going to study the Pinus. As you know, Pinus, right from your graduation syllabus, the Pinus is there, and Pinus is critically studied plant in the Coniferales. Okay, Pinus is a genus. Actually, it harbors nearly 80 to 120 species. So all these species comes under this particular genus of the Pinus, and we should know carefully what are the vegetative and the reproductive features of this Pinus, because many a time UPSC mains examination likes to ask this particular question in their mains examination. Okay, so it is very important that you should know the general characteristics of the Coniferales as well as the general characteristics of the Pinus as well. All right, consider the syllabus. We are here, we are dealing with the paper 1 and the chapter 3, which is called the Phanerogams, which will include the Gymnosperms and the Angiosperms. In the Gymnosperms, we are studying the silent features of the Coniferales. We have completed the Cycadales and the Jinguales. Now we are going to consider the Coniferales. All right. Now consider the introductory slide. See, the conifers constitute the 3/4 of the living gymnosperm flora. Okay, so whatever the living gymnosperms are there, okay, whatever the gymnosperms total are there, out of this total gymnosperm, 3/4 are the conifers. So you can imagine the number, that is 75% of the plant belonging to the gymnosperms are the conifers. So you can say the conifers are showing the very large biodiversity. Now they are very diversified, that they constitute the 3/4 of the total gymnosperm flora, and they cover the vast areas in the temperate regions of the both the northern and the southern hemisphere. See, we have talked about this, that this is our mother earth, and here we have the equator in the center, and above the equator and below the equator what we have is the tropical region. Okay, and after this tropical region what we have above is the temperate region, and below as well we have the temperate region. So whether it's the southern hemisphere or the northern hemisphere, in this temperate region is typically occupied by these particular conifers. So habitat wise, where these conifers actually found on the mother earth, they likes to grow in the temperate region. And as you know, from the equator above and below, what we have first is the tropical region, and above this tropical region what we have is the temperate region, both on the north side as well as the south side. So whether it's a south side or whether it's a north side, on both the sides what we have is the temperate region. And this temperate region, whether it belongs to the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere, it is typically occupied by the gymnosperms, which are called as the conifers. Okay, so habitat wise, the conifers likes to grow in the temperate region, and the this temperate region is actually heavily occupied by these conifers. Actually, you can easily observe the conifer forest around the world, because these coniferous forests are showing the very uniformity. The trees are standing like one after the another, and they were forming the very dense forest, and generally they show the pyramidal structure, and that is why they looks very beautiful. Okay, so all these plants, when they are standing very tall and forming the pyramidal structure and forming a very unique forest, these types of the forest are attributed to the conifers. So what are conifers? Conifers are the group of the gymnosperms which are making the 3/4 of the total species which are present in the gymnosperms, and these are largely found in the temperate region. So habitat wise, they like to grow in the temperate region. All right, now see, the largest continuous and the dense forest in the world is the coniferous forest. Actually, coniferous forest is very famous for its density. Okay, the very dense and the largest, actually the largest, very continuous, okay, no break is there, largest and continuous very dense forest in the world is the coniferous forest. Actually, it encircles the earth just below the northern tundra and the Arctic, that is in and around the temperate region. Okay, all these are the tundra and the Arctic nearly constitute the boundaries of the temperate region. Actually, this tundra comes under the temperate, and Arctic can be the boundary of this temperate region. So around the temperate region, they were forming the continuous, very dense forest, the very continuous without any break, and there is a dense forest of the conifers which is encircling the earth. Okay, right from the northern tundra and the Arctic region, and it extends from the Canada, Russia, northern Europe, northern China, and the Japan. Okay, so you can consider these countries geographically. You will come to know they were actually forming the circle on the mother earth, and on this particular circle there is a continuous coniferous forest, and these circles actually constitute the temperate region of the mother earth where these particular conifers likes to grow. Okay, so in the introductory slide what we have studied, that the conifers constitute the 3/4 of the total gymnosperms, and they like to grow in the temperate region. Okay, and they were actually forming the very large and the continuous forest of themselves. right? Consider the most familiar gymnosperms are the conifers, because whatever the gymnosperms we see around us, they are the most familiar. The most familiar gymnosperms always belongs to the conifers, okay? And the other whenever we talk about the other orders of the gymnosperm, they are generally rare and they are found in the wild, but the conifers are largely used in the cities as well, okay? We like to plant them around us, around our regions, but most majority of them only grow in the temperate region. And that is why in India, when we talk about the subtropical country, in this subtropical country we will not find that much conifers in our local region. The very reason behind it is that the conifers likes to grow in the temperate region, and India have the temperate region only on the north side, okay? That is the right from the Punjab, Jammu and Kashmir and Uttarakhand. That region has the typical temperate type of the environment, but below we have the tropical country. So due to this tropicalness, we do not find much of the conifers growing in the tropical regions, okay? So the most familiar group of the gymnosperms is the conifers, which includes the pines, then the spruces, firs, cedars, hemlocks, yews, larches and cypresses, okay? You must have heard all these words in your graduation syllabus, because these plants are very famous plants. By one way or another way, they are famous. They may be famous for as ornamental, they may be famous for their medicinal values, or they may be famous for their beautiful habit, okay? So actually the giant coastal redwood, which is called the Sequoia sempervirens, this Sequoia sempervirens is the it is in English it is commonly called as the redwood, okay? This is the Sequoia plant you can see in this particular picture. And as you already know, the Sequoia plant is the tallest plant we know, okay? So it's the tallest plant, and the Sequoia sempervirens is a conifer, which is the tallest living vascular plant, okay? Whatever the vascularity is there in the pteridophytes, gymnosperm and the angiosperms, through these all groups, that is the pteridophytes, gymnosperms and angiosperm, the tallest vascular plant is the Sequoia plant, okay? The species is sempervirens. So Sequoia sempervirens is the tallest living vascular plant, of which belongs to the conifers, okay? It may attain the heights of the 300 meters, 100 meters. That literally means the 300 feet, okay? It can grow up to the 300 feet. And why it is important to show here, to put the word vascular here, because these vascular plants possess the xylem and phloem, and xylem is responsible for transporting the water right from the soil to the apex. And as you know, apex is at the 300 feet, okay? Today, if you want to take out the water from the soil to the 300 feet, it will require the large amount of energy in the form of motors, right? We use the motors to take out this water right from the soil to the apex of the buildings generally. And buildings are not 300 feet, generally 300 feet buildings were not locally present, right? But still, in the Sequoia plant, you will see the plant roots are taking the water, and right away they were transporting this particular water to the apex at the 300 feet without using any external source of energy. So that is why it is important to mention here, it's the tallest living vascular plant, okay, which is called as the Sequoia sempervirens, and it can grow up to the 100 meters height, right? Now see the another conifer, which is called the brittlestone pine, okay? You should remember the word. English name is brittlestone pine, while the botanical name is the Pinus longiva, okay? As the name suggests, it is the Pinus and the longiva because it is long-lived plant, okay, of the White Mountains of the California, okay? In the California, you will find this particular plant in the White Mountains, okay? And it's the oldest living tree. See, it is reputed as the oldest living tree, and it has the age of 4,900 years. So almost 5,000 years age is possessed by this particular plant, which is called as the Pinus longiva. Okay, you can observe this plant in this particular picture. This is the picture of the Pinus longiva, and this Pinus longiva plant is actually 4,900 years old. So it's the oldest living tree on the Mother Earth. Okay, nearly 5,000 years of the history is revolved around this particular gymnosperm. So, in the first introductory lecture, we have talked about this, that the gymnosperms are the slow growers, and they have very long lives. Okay, so the Pinus longiva is the best example to observe this, that how slowly this plant is growing, and it has the age of nearly 5,000 years. Okay, this makes this particular tree the oldest living tree on the Mother Earth. Okay, so the conifers is very familiar group actually, because the oldest tree and the longest living tree, all these trees belongs to the conifers, and we find the large coniferous forest in the temperate region. Okay, and this particular ecosystem is typically made up of these conifers. So the whole ecosystem in the temperate region starts from the conifers, and that is why these conifers are quite famous, not only in our syllabus but also though in those countries which comes in a typical temperate environment. Okay, now consider this. See, the thick and the rugged bark may of many conifers help the tree to survive the forest fires. See, this is very important. Generally, the forest fires are famous in the temperate region, and but these forest fires are typically avoided by these particular conifers. Now how? They has a very thick and the rugged bark. Okay, when you consider the stem of the conifers, you will find a very thick and the very rugged bark. The bark is present there. So whenever there is a forest fire, this forest fire generally do not destroy these trees. So by avoiding the forest fires, these trees stand there before the forest fire, even after the forest fires. So they naturally they were protected from this forest fire due to the presence of the thick and the rugged bark. Right? There are 52 genera which are in and all present in these particular coniferales, and the 566 species are there. Okay, just like the Pinus is one of the genus of the Coniferales, there are the total 52 genera which comes under this particular order of Coniferales, and there were the total 566 species. So if you remember, I have told you what is the number of the total species of the Gymnosperms on the Mother Earth. If you remember it, you will come to know the 3 by 4th species are the 566. Right? So there are total 52 genera which comes under this particular coniferales, and total there are the 566 species which comes under this particular 52 genera, and all these 52 genera are comes under the order which is called as the coniferales. Okay, now these are actually classified in the 6 families. So we are talking about the sequence of the classification. First we have the order, right? Order, then we have the families, then we have the genus, and from this genus, after the genus we describe the species. Okay, so order, there is a coniferales. In that we have the 6 families, we have the 52 genera, and then we have the 566 species under this particular coniferales. So 52 genera, total of 566 species which are distributed into the 6 families. And what are these 6 families? First is called the Pinaceae, then we have the Taxodiaceae, then Cupressae, Podocarpaceae, Araucariaceae, and the Cephalotaxaceae. All these 6 families are there which are comes under the coniferales. Okay, so how many families are there? There are the 6 families, and we have the 52 genera, and these are all 52 genera constitute the one order which is called the coniferales. So as you know, the Pinus belongs to the Pinaceae family. So we are taking the one genus of the Pinus which belongs to the Pinaceae family, and this particular Pinaceae family it can be studied through the example of the Pinuses. So for each category of the family, that is the Taxodiaceae and the Cupressae and all the other 3 families, we can take the each example for its studies. Okay, the habit. Okay, now see, the plants are mostly trees or the shrubs. See, whatever the species which are belonging to the coniferales, these coniferales shows the habit of trees or the shrubs. There are generally no herb forms. Okay, herbs are not there, only the trees and the shrubs are there. So habit wise, consider this particular picture, you will see a long height tree. Okay, so the tree habit, majority of the time there is a tree habit, they have the very solid tree trunk, they have the very solid cylindrical stem, and this particular cylindrical stem holds the large branches. So generally the habit wise, when we talk about the coniferales, what they are showing? They are showing the habit of a trees or the shrubs. Okay, majority of them are the trees and some of them are the shrubs. Okay, now most of the trees are the pyramidal when young and round or topped when they become old. See, when you consider the young tree generally shows the pyramidal shape. Consider this picture. See, this tree is showing the particular pyramidal shape. Okay, like this pyramid like shape is there, which is going narrower at the apex and becomes broad at the base. But as the tree gets old, okay, as it gets old, at the top it becomes very flat or round. Okay, so pyramidal shape is not maintained throughout the life of the coniferales, but it is present at the beginning when the plant is young. Okay, when the plant is young, this particular coniferal species is showing the pyramidal shape in their bodies, but when they get older, this pyramidal shape is somehow got discarded, and they have very flat top when they become old. Okay, now the many have the columnar trunks free of the branches to a considerable height. See, consider this, majority of the members of the coniferals, what are they showing? they're showing the branch free trunks. Understand through this particular picture. See, this is the trunk of the coniferals, and you will not see the branching at the base. So the branching free trunks present at the base, okay, to the considerable height, and after reaching the considerable height at the top, what they have, they shows the presence of branches. So whatever the branches are there, they were present at the top of the tree, and the whole trunk is free of the branches. Okay, so the habit wise, there were the trees and the shrubs. Okay, trees and shrubs are there in the coniferals, and these are trees generally showing the pyramidal shape when they are young, and as they become old, they got distorted. And generally, the whatever the coniferal species are there, they generally not show the branching right from the base. Right from the base, they were showing the solid tree trunk, and after reaching certain height, they will start to show the crown at the apex. All right, now consider this. See, the many conifers have the needle like leaves. Okay, which type of leaves were present there? They are showing the needle like leaves, and they are evergreen. Okay, they remain green throughout the year. They do not shed their leaves, and they remain green throughout the years, and majority of them show the needle like leaves, as you can observe in this particular picture. See, the needle like leaves are there. So these needle like leaves are the xerophytic leaves of the gymnosperms, and they are evergreen. The very important example of the araucaria leaves, they may persist and remain green as long as 15 years. See, this is the picture of araucaria. See, this is the one of the species of araucaria, and these are young leaves are there. These are young leaves which are green in color. They can persist even for 15 years. Once the leaves are there, they are there for the 15 years. Generally, we do not see this condition in the angiosperm, because the angiosperms used to shed their leaves continuously throughout the season. So generally not for the year even. They generally shed their leaves in 4 to 8 months. But there are gymnosperms which can take their leaves age to the 15 years even. For example, the araucaria. This araucaria plant, this particular plant, once the leaves are there, they can remain on the plant for 15 straight years. So the needle-like leaves were typical characteristic of the coniferals, and these coniferals are evergreen plant. And generally, these evergreen plants shows the leaves which can grow or remain on the plant till the 15 years. The best example for this is the araucaria. Now see, the leaf base expands from the branches bearing it enlarges. Okay, so see, right from the stem, it enlarges itself to the apex like this. Okay, so as you can see, this tree must have the ornamental values. Very beautiful looking trees. Right from the stem, the leaf bases expand itself and it grow outward. It gets enlarges. So general pyramidal shape is also shown by this particular tree as well. So the needle like leaves are there. These needle like leaves may persist for years due to its xerophytic abilities. And the best example to explain this particular longevity of the leaves in the gymnosperms or the coniferals is the araucaria, which can carry the leaves to the 15 years age. Right now, see, the few coniferals are the deciduous and shedding their leaves. Okay, out of them, some there are some examples of the coniferals which are deciduous. That literally means they can shed their leaves. On the one hand, you will find the araucaria like plant which can keep the leaves till the 15 years, but there are other plants which can grow their leaves and they can grow their leaves and they can shed their leaves. Such a trees comes under the deciduous category, because deciduous plants like to shed their leaves, right? So the shedding of the leaves occurs in the conifers as well. Some members of the conifers show the shedding of the leaves or the branches in the autumn season, right? For example, larix, decidua, and the taxodium desticum. Okay, this is the picture of the larix. Okay, see, this is the larix gymnosperm, and the taxodium plant is here. Okay, these are plants like to shed their leaves in the autumn, but there are certain plants which never shed their leaves and remains evergreen. Okay, so some are evergreen, some are deciduous. The two words are very important here, because these are two words shows the contrast here. First is the evergreen and second is the deciduous. Deciduous plants are those plants which shed their leaves in a particular season, but the evergreen plants never shed their leaves. The example for the evergreen plant, we have the araucaria, and examples for the deciduous plant is the larix and the taxodium. Okay, so all these are the characteristic features which are relating typical to the coniferals. So okay, they are showing the needle-like leaves. Sometimes they are evergreen and sometimes they are deciduous. Consider this, the Pinus family. Okay, now let's move towards the particular things in these particular coniferals. That is the Pinus family. It's one of the 6 families. Okay, and to which the Pinus belongs. Okay, it's the largest and the most recent modern conifer families. Okay, it's the largest family among the conifers. Okay, as you know, 566 species are there, and majority of them belongs to this Pinus family. Okay, so the Pinus family is the largest and the most recent modern family. It is the characteristic feature of this family are the spirally arranged parts. Okay, the spirally arranged parts are shown by these particular species, by these particular coniferals. Okay, now two pollen sacs in the microsporophylls. Okay, the very first characteristic of this family is that they shows the presence of spirally arranged parts. Okay, spirally arranged parts means the leaves are spirally arranged. They are the stem is always covered with the spirally arranged leaves, and after that there were the two pollen sacs in the microsporophyll. It is very important, the two pollen sacs are there for the pollen grains in the microsporophyll. This is also the characteristic feature of this Pinus family, that they show the presence of two pollen sacs. Actually the sacs are two on which these pollen grains are get stored in the microsporophylls. Okay, then these pollen grains are mostly the bisaccate. Okay, that is the two sacs are there. Then the ovule scale free or the slightly fused at the base of the bract scale. There's the two ovules per scale. Okay, when we talk about the megasporophyll, we have per scale we have the two ovules, and the seeds are generally winged. Okay, all these are the characteristic features which are only belongs to the Pinus family. Now see the seeds. These seeds are generally winged, and they are showing the two ovules per scale, plus they are showing the presence of the two pollen sacs. These are all characteristic features which belongs to the Pinus family. See, when we talk about the gymnosperm, this is very important. Okay, when we talk about the gymnosperms, generally we talk about the all the characteristics of the gymnosperms. Then what happened after that? Then we start to study the different orders. Okay, now under the orders there were the many genuses and many families. So while talking about the general characteristics of the orders, we are generally talking about all the genus, families and species comes under this particular order. Now once we study the order, then we start to study the family. Now in the family we have the one kind of genus, and that is why this family shows the very peculiar characteristics. And now after studying this family, once we go to the species level, even the species are showing the distinction from the one another. So while studying this particular taxonomical hierarchy, you should remember that once we study the gymnosperms at the top level, we are generally talking about the gymnosperms, and finally when we talk about the species, we are particularly talking about that one particular plant, because the family can have hundreds of the members, right? Under the orders we can have the 500s of the members. Under the gymnosperm even we can have the 700 members, but the species is only one. So generally when we talk about the UPSC main syllabus in the taxonomical way, they generally likes to tell you the overall family picture. Okay, they wants to study the families, then they wants you to study the orders in general. Okay, they generally do not go to the species level, because if you consider the UPSC mains paper, there you will come to know what they are asking about the Pinus ovule. Now once you know the Pinus ovule, you can draw the Pinus ovule. They do not mention the species, so generally they do not go to the species level, but they remain at the family orders or the general gymnospermus level. Okay, or at the kingdom level. So here in the Pinus family, you should remember the typical characteristics which is only possessed by this Pinus family, and it is not possessed by rest of the 5 families. Okay, so in and all there are the 6 families which are present in these Coniferales, and the Pinus is one of them. And this Pinus is showing the typical characteristics of the spirally arranged parts. 2 pollen sacs are there. Then they are showing the 2 ovules per scale, and they generally their seeds are winged. That is, their seeds possess the wings. Okay. Okay, so the Pinus genus has the 80 species. Okay, in and all there were the 80 species, which are naturally has the 2 subgenera. Okay, depending upon which type of wood is there, how they are showing the whether they are showing the evergreen type of habit, or they are showing the deciduous type of habit. Depending upon all these characteristics, they were naturally showing the 2 subgenera. Okay, first one of them is the haploxylon or the soft pines. See, the scaly shoot at the base of the short shoot is deciduous. Deciduous, that literally means they shed their leaves. Okay, whatever the scaly shoot is there at the very short shoot, it is deciduous in nature. Okay, it will remove in the autumn season, and the red ruchets in the secondary woods of the stems are present. Whatever the red ruchets are there anatomically, they were present in their secondary woods. Okay, when we talk about the haploxylon type of pines or the soft pines, in their secondary wood, whatever the secondary wood is possessed by them, this secondary wood shows the presence of red ruchets in their structures. Then their roots have the very smooth wall. Okay, when we take out their roots, the taproot system is there, and this taproot system is showing the very smooth wall, outer wall. Then there are the needle like leaves have the very single vascular bundle. This is very important. In the leaf, they were only there is only presence of the one vascular bundle. So On the one hand, we have the haploxylon type of soft pines in which they are showing the deciduous habit plus the red ruchets were present in their secondary wood, and the needle-like leaf are showing the only presence of the single vascular bundle. While on the other hand, when you talk about the diploxylon or the hard pines, the scaly shoot is present at the base of the shoot is persistent or the evergreen. It do not shade. Okay, see here we have the word deciduous and here we have the word persistent. Persistent literally means they cannot shade from the plant. They will always remain there. So scaly shoot is always there in the hard pines, but in the soft pines, this scaly shoot tends to break off from the parent plant in the particular season of the autumn. Okay, so in the diploxylon pines, what we have is the scaly shoot which always remains there. Then the red ruches have corrugated walls, and the needles has the two vascular bundles. Okay, the very important difference is here: the needle-like leaves, whatever present in the hard pines, these the needle-like leaves shows the presence of the two vascular bundles, and hence the word diploxylon. Okay, so the haploxylon pines are there and the diploxylon pines are there. These haploxylons and the diploxylon pines are the natural two subgenera of the Pinus genus. Whatever the Pinus genus is there, this Pinus genus possesses the 80 species. Out of them, we can classify natural them into the two subgenera. The very first is the haploxylon and second is the diploxylon. In the haploxylon, you will find the short scaly shoot, which is the deciduous. But in the diploxylon, you will find the scaly shoot persistent. Then the only one vascular bundle is present in the needle, while the two vascular bundles were present in these particular hard pines in their needle. Okay, needle that literally means in their leaves. Okay, if the leaves possess the two vascular bundles, they comes under the diploxylon category, and if the leaves are possessing only the one single vascular bundle, then it comes under the haploxylon category. So there are soft pines, there are hard pines. These are nothing but the two subgenera of the Pinus genus. Okay, Pinus genus is herbal the 80 species. It is naturally divided into the two subgenera. All right, first one is called as the haploxylon and second one is called as the diploxylon. The very important terms from the UPSC mains examination point of view. Now consider the morphology of the pinus plant. See, the young pine tree is the pyramidal with the horizontal branches at the regular interval. Consider this is the pine tree and you will see the pyramidal structure is there. Okay, it will show the pyramid like structure like this. Okay, at the regular interval there is a branching and there is a solid stem in between. Okay, here we have the solid stem and at the regular interval you will find the branching, and this will give them a very pyramidal type of shape. Okay, pyramidal type of shape is there. So morphologically, when we consider the pine tree, the young pine tree generally shows the pyramidal structure, and this pyramidal, in this particular pyramidal structure, the central axis is of the main tree trunk and the lateral at the regular interval there is the branches. See, this symmetry is lost as the tree matures. We have discussed this already. As this gymnosperm is getting older, these pines get older, these pines tends to lose its symmetry of the pyramidal shape. Whatever the pyramidal shape is there, this will remain only at the young stage and not at the mature stage. Whatever the mature stage is there, this mature stage do not show this pyramidal structure, and this pyramidal structure slowly got distorted over a period of time as the tree becomes mature. Then the crown becomes round or flat and the spreading. Okay, this particular crown will become rounded like this. It may be spreading laterally. Okay, and due to this particular pyramidal shape is get lost. So whatever the young trees are there, young trees looks very pyramidal and beautiful, but as they got older they got distorted. Okay, this particular pyramidal symmetry is not there throughout the life, but it is only present at the young stage. Okay, so whenever you talk about the general morphology of the pinus, what is there? There is a pyramidal shape at the base, right? At the when the plant is young, and when it becomes older, the pyramidal shape tends to distort itself. Then consider the roots. There is a primary taproot root with a large number of the lateral roots, which are called as the long roots. Okay, so main root is the taproot. Okay, whatever the pinus species are there, they are showing the taproot system. And as you already know, in the taproot, you will have the one solid root which is coming out of the stem, and it is right going deep below into the ground. And then it has the very long lateral roots. Okay, long roots are there which are laterally coming out from the main taproot. Okay, so secondary roots are long roots, and generally they were described as a long roots because they were coming laterally from the main taproot system. So the taproot system is present in the pinus, and this pinus is showing the lateral growth of the roots, which is called as the long roots. Now the primary root soon becomes arrested. Okay, whatever the primary root is there, it soon becomes arrested while the long roots continues to grow. This is very important. Whatever the main root is there, consider this is a plant, the pyramidal shaped plant is there, and this plant is possessing the this particular taproot, the main taproot, and it will have the lateral roots like this. Okay, so after some time, this particular taproot stops growing. It arrests its all development. Okay, it's like that, and it will stop growing here, and it will not grow any further from this length. But these long roots will continue continuously growing to have the lateral soil support. Okay, so that is why it is called as the long roots, because these lateral roots grow very long and take the help of the soil to stand still on the ground. Okay, so very important thing you should remember about the pinus is that the roots is the taproot system, and this taproot system possesses the lateral long roots, and this taproot after some time got arrested, its development got arrested, but the long roots continues to grow and bear the clusters of the dwarf roots. Finally, these the particular taproots also possess the cluster of the dwarf roots. Okay, at the apex, see this, there are the dwarf roots. Okay, so the complex root system is there. Once there is a main taproot, after the main taproot there is the lateral long roots, and these lateral long roots finally will possess the cluster of the dwarf roots. Okay, some of these roots are branched dichotomously. Okay, even the branching is there in the roots branch is dichotomous, and they form the corolite masses. Okay, corolite root like masses were also formed. Okay, and they have the ectotrophic mycorrhizae are termed as the mycorrhizal roots. As you know, we have the example of a pinus when we study about the mycorrhiza, and this particular pinus species shows the symbiotic association with the fungi. This symbiotic association of the higher plants with that of the fungi, it is called as the mycorrhizal association. So pinus plant not only showing the corolite root, but they are also showing the mycorrhizal association with the other plants. Okay, so when we talk about the roots of the pinus, these are very interesting plant, because first of all they were showing the taproot and the long roots are continuously growing, while the taproot is not growing throughout the life. It got arrested somewhere in their life cycle, but the long roots continuously grow, and these long roots finally possess the dwarf roots, and so they branch dichotomously, and they possess the corolide relationship as well as the mycorrhizal relationship. Okay, so very important characteristic of the pinus is that they shows the very unique type of the roots. Okay, with the symbiotic association with the other organisms. Now see the branches, how the branches of the pinus is there. See, there are actually the two types of branches in the pinus. The very first branch is called as the long shoot. Okay, there is long shoot with the unlimited growth. Okay, that means this particular shoot will grow unlimitedly. Okay, it does not have any limitation. So the long shoots are there. These are the long shoots of the unlimited growth, and these are long shoots will grow unlimitedly. Okay, then after that we have the short dwarf shoot. What are dwarf shoot? Dwarf shoots are those shoots which has the limited growth. Okay, these are the dwarf shoot which possess the very limited growth. After having the leaves, it will stop growing. Okay, so there are two types of branches. One is the long shoot, other is the dwarf shoot. Long shoots are growing unlimited in an unlimited fashion, while the short shoots are limited in growth. Okay, they stop growing after a certain period of time, but the long shoots do not stop after a certain period of time. They grow unlimitedly. Okay, now consider this: the long shoots occurs on the main stem as the lateral buds in the axial of the scaly leaves and terminates in the apical bud. See how the long shoot starts itself. There is the main axis of the pinus, and from this main axis they were growing laterally like this. Okay, these are considered as a long shoots. Okay, and these long shoots generally have the apical bud. Here they will always have the apical bud, and from this apical bud there is a growth. So whatever the long shoots are there, they are coming from the main axis. Whatever the main stem is there, from this main stem the lateral growth is there, and this lateral growth is having the apical bud, and that is why they are the long shoots, because they shows the growth up to unlimited time, right? See, the latter is enclosed by the number of bud scales closely surrounded by the thick mat of hairs. See, the other one which is called as the dwarf shoot. How the dwarf shoot is there? The dwarf shoot has the number of bud scales which are closely surrounding by the thick mat of hairs. So whatever the short shoots are there, they are coming out of the lateral branches, and they are showing the presence of the thick hairs. Okay, the lateral bud grows. Okay, this lateral bud grows and nearly horizontal to the certain length and term nodal growth. Okay, that is their lateral growth is there, and up to a certain period of time they got converted into the nodal growth. Now there are uninodal pines and there are multinodal pines. Okay, the nodes can be the single. Okay, in a one pine you will find the single node like this, and in the other pines you will find the multiple nodes in this particular short or dwarf branches. Okay, then generally the uninodal pines possess only the single internode, and the multinodal types of pines generally shows the more than two internodes. Okay, form in a year, right? So whenever we talk about the branches of the Pinus, how are the branches there? There are the long branches and there are the dwarf branches. The long branches are directly coming out from the main stem, while the dwarf branches are coming from the lateral branches. And these long branches will grow unlimitedly, while the dwarf branches growing limitedly. And these dwarf branches, the long branches possess the apical bud, while the dwarf branches possess the number of buds which are closely surrounded, and that is why they shows the very limited growth. Sometimes they create the only one internode in a year. Then in such a condition they are called as the uninodal pines, and if they are creating the multinodes per year, then these are called as the multinodal pines. Okay, so uninodal pines are there and multinodal pines are there. See the leaves. Okay, how the leaves of the Pinus is there. See, the Pinus possesses the two types of leaves. Okay, the very first type of leaves. See, the very first type of leaves is the scaly leaves, and the other are the green foliage leaves. Okay, acellular green foliage leaves are there, which are called as the needles. Okay, so needle-like leaves are there, and the scaly leaves are there. See, scaly leaves are present on the base of the a particular needle-like leaves. Okay, all these are considered as scaly leaves because they do not grow much in length, and they generally show the presence of a scare on the stem. So these are the scaly leaves which are present in the particular pines, and these are scaly leaves. Generally, we have to take the close inspection of the plant if you want to find the scaly leaves. But there are other form of leaves which are called as the foliage leaves. Okay, or the needle leaves. Okay, so needle leaves can be easily seen. Needle leaves are the large leaves, they have some length, and these particular needle leaves are largely responsible for the photosynthesis in this particular Pinus trees. Okay, so there are two types of leaves. First is called as the scaly leaves, and second one is called as the foliage leaves, which are present in the Pinus. Okay, now the stem, how the stem is there, it is cylindrical and generally covered with the scaly bark. Okay, scaly bark is there and it is cylindrical shape. It is showing the secondary growth. Of course, secondary growth is present in these particular pines, and these secondary growth is occurred in the cylindrical stem. Okay, solid cylindrical stem is there with a scaly bark on it. Then we have studied the how the general morphology of the Pinus is there. This general morphology will give you idea about its habit. After that, we have studied how the branches were there. After the branches, we have studied how the roots are there. After the roots, we have studied how the leaves are there. And after the leaves, we have studied how the stem of the Pinus is there. All these vegetative characteristics are very, very important, and you should remember it very carefully. Okay. Now consider the reproductive features of these particular Pinus tree. See, the plants are monoecious. How the plants are? Plants are monoecious. The plants are monoecious literally means the male and female cones are born on the different branches on the same tree. That is, there is a one tree, and this one tree is possessing both the male cone and the female cone, and that is why we are describing them as a monoecious type of condition, because this Pinus tree shows the monoecious type of condition, and the male cone and the female cone both born on the same tree but on the different branches. As you can see, one type of cone is born on this particular branch, while the other kind of cone is born on this particular branch. Okay, so on the different branch there is a male and female reproductive organs, but they are on the same tree. That is why we describe them as a monoecious. So the Pinus trees or the Pinus plants or the Pinus genus is the monoecious genus, which showing the presence of a male cone and the female cone on the same tree but on the different branches. Okay, the male cones are modified dwarf shoots and appear in a clusters on the lower branches of the trees. Okay, so male cones, of course, it's a modified dwarf shoots. Whatever the dwarf shoots are there, they got modified and they become the male cones. Okay, as you know, there are the two types of shoots in the Pinus, the long shoots and the dwarf shoots. Right, the dwarf shoots get modified to create the male cone, and generally they comes in a cluster, and generally they were born on the lower branches of the tree. Whatever the tree is there, in this tree, in the lower branches, these are particular shoots, these are particular male cones are born there. Okay, so you should carefully remember while explaining the Pinus that it is monoecious. Both the male gamete, both the male cones and the female cones are getting born on the same tree, but on the different branches. Generally, on the lower branches you will find the male cones, and on the upper branches you will find the female cones. Generally, the dwarf shoots got converted into the male cones. Okay. Now see, the number of cones in a cluster vary from 15 to the 140. See how many cones can be formed. 15 can be formed in a Pinus graffiti, while 140 can even form in the Pinus rockburgi. Okay, so the number vary from species to species. As you know, we have 80 species in this particular Pinus genus. So species to species, how many cones will form in a cluster? It vary. The 15 can be formed in the Pinus graffiti, while 140 can be formed in the Pinus roxburghi. Okay. Now each of cone is arising in the axial of the scaly leaf. Whatever the scaly leaf, the two types of leaves we have discussed, right? Whatever the scaly leaf is there, this scaly leaf, at the base of the scaly leaf, there is a presence of this particular cone. The cone arises actually from the axial of the scaly leaves, and it replaces the dwarf shoot and is surrounded by the several bracts. Okay. So the dwarf shoot is typically got replaced by these male cones. So you should remember, if there are two shoots, the long shoots and the dwarf shoot is getting converted into the male cones. Okay. It is very important to remember this. The reproductive organ is using the dwarf shoot to get created itself. Okay. So at the base of the scaly leaves, these cones are coming out. They are coming in the cluster, and generally they take the dwarf shoot and convert this particular dwarf shoot into the reproductive shoot. Okay. Now consider this. See, the male cone is small. Generally, it is smaller, and it is 2 to 4 centimeter in height. Okay, length is 2 to 4 centimeter. See, 2 to 4 centimeter length is there for this particular male cone, and the oval in shape. Observe this shape. This is oval in shape, and it develops in the axials of the scaly leaves. Okay, whatever the scaly leaves are there, from this axial of the scaly leaves, these particular male cones are born there, and these male cones possess the length of 2 to 4 centimeter, while they are oval in shape. Now, the male cones had the central axis on which the 60 to 150 microsporophylls are spirally arranged on the axis. See, these are the microsporophylls. So it can vary right from the 60 to 150. 60 to 150 microsporophylls are born on this particular male cone. So there is a male cone. The male cone has the microsporophylls, and microsporophylls can vary right from 60 to the 150 in number. Okay, and they were spirally arranged on the axis. See, observe, you can see in this particular picture, they were spirally arranged on this particular axis. Okay. So while we're talking about the male cones, how the male cones are there, they are 2 to 4 centimeter in length. They are oval in shape, and generally they are coming out of the axial of the scaly leaves. 60 to 150 microsporophylls were present, right? See, a single microsporophyll, what this single microsporophyll possesses, as you know, the number may be the 60 to 150. Out of this, if you consider the one microsporophyll, it's a membranous stalk structure. Okay, it possesses the stalk, and it's a membranous structure with a distal expanded rugged triangular sterile part, which is called apophysis. Okay, so the small stalk is there, and then the triangular shape is there, which is sterile in nature from outside. Okay, it is sterile in nature, and this portion is called as the apophysis. What it is called? It is called as the apophysis. It's the triangular structure, and below what we have is a stalk. Now, this each microsporophyll bears the two sacs. As you already know, we have talked about the Pinus family, and it will show the presence of two pollen sacs. Of course, the two pollen sacs is the typical characteristics of the Pinus family. So it will possess like this, the two sacs. This one is the first, and this one is the second, and it is present in the apophysis. Okay. Two pollen sacs like microsporangia on the abaxial surface. So when we talk about the male cone, how the male cone is there, the male cone is born on the axial of the scaly leaves, and they show the oval shape structure, and this oval shape structure will possess the 60 to 150 type of 150 microsporophyll. If you take out the one microsporophyll, it will show the apex triangular structure and the base with the stalk, and this apex triangular structure is called apophysis, which is divided into two regions, the first region and the second region. In the first region, you will in the first and second region, you will find the presence of the pollen grains, which are literally, these are two regions are called as the two sacs, pollen sacs. Okay. Now consider this. The development of the microsporangia is the eusporangia type. We have discussed this eusporangia type many times in the pteridophytes, because it will develops from a group of hypodermal cells. If the group of the cells is involved, then such a type of development is called as the eusporangia type of development. Okay. Sorry. Two type of development. Okay, that is the many types of the cells were involved in the development of the microsporangia, and hence we called it as the eusporangia type. Okay, of the microsporophyll. Then the mature microsporangium, if you consider the microsporangium of the Pinus, it is showing the multi-layered wall. Okay, multi-layered wall is there, and this multi-layered wall possesses the tapetum. Tapetum is nothing but the nutritive tissue, right? And the microspore mother cell, whatever the cells are present there, microspore mother cells are there. These microspore mother cells will later create the microspores in the form of pollen grains, and there is a tapetum tissue to nourish this particular pollen grains, right? So multi-layered microsporangium is there, and this multi-layered microsporangium will have the tapetum as a nutritive tissue and the microspore mother cells. Now these microspore mother cells will later create the pollen grains. Now see, the each of microspore mother cells by the meiotic division will produce the 4 microspores or the pollen grains. So multi-layered microsporangium is there. Okay, outer layer is the multi-layer microsporangium is there. This multi-layer microsporangium is having the presence of the tissue or the cells or the mass of cells. Okay, mass of cells like this, these are called as the microspore mother cells. Then we have the tapetum. Okay, now each cell of this particular microsporangium, this cell will undergo the meiotic division. Now it's a diploid cell, and through the meiotic division it will create the 4 haploid cells. Okay, so each haploid cell will act as a pollen grain. Okay, so this is how the pollen grains are formed inside the particular Pinus tree in the microsporangia. Okay, so the pollen grains were created by using the microspore mother cells. Okay, and what is the structure of microsporangia? Microsporangium, it consists of the multi-layered wall, then we have tapetum, then we have the microspore mother cells, and this microspore mother cell through the meiotic division will create the pollen grains, right? Thus at the maturity, the single microsporangium contains the numerous pale yellow pollen grains. Okay, the pale yellow pollen grains are there. Once it got matured, the pollen grains is got created, and these pollen grains are pale yellow in color. Okay, also these are the pollen grains in the Pinus, and these are pollen grains generally showing the pale yellow color type of color. Okay, now see, the pollen grains are boat shape. Okay, observe the shape of this particular pollen grain. They are showing the boat shape type of shape, and with the monosucculate aperture, that is, there is only one aperture present in these particular pollen grains, and are bounded by the outer thick exine, of course, and inner thin entine. We know the structure of pollen grains. On the outer side we have the very thick exine layer, and on the inner side what we have is the thin entine layer. So the pollen grains once formed in the microsporangium, these pollen grains are pale yellow in color. Which color is there? The pale yellow color pollen grains is there, and they are boat shape. Okay, what is the shape of this pollen grains? They are boat shape, and they are showing the presence of a one pore only, and they are generally these are also the pollen grains, and that is why they are showing the outer exine and inner entine layer. Now see, the exine on the lateral side of the pollen grain is expanded to form the two wings. Okay, that is, the two wings is got created in this particular exine layer. Whatever the exine layer is there, consider this is an pollen grain. Here outer side we have exine, and on the inner side what we have is the entine, and this exine is get modified, get expanded to have the two wings. As we already know, we have discussed, this is the peculiar characteristic feature of the Pinus family, that they show the wing pollen grains. Okay, so the two wings are or the sissae got created in the pollen grain due to the modification of the outer layer, which is called exine. Okay, what is whatever the exine is there is got expanded, and it will create the two wings there. Here one, and here the two, and here is the main pollen grain. So main pollen grain is there, and this main pollen grain possesses the one exine and other one wing, and this one is the another wing. So two wings are formed from the exine. Thus, the pollen grains in the Pinus is the bisaccate. That is why rightfully we explain them as a bisaccate, because they shows the two type of sessi. Okay, indicating their anemophilous mode of the pollination. Now this is very important. Why we are calling them as an anemophilous mode of pollination? Because this mode of pollination, you will always use the wind for the pollination purpose. That is, the wind will carry this particular pollen grains, and that is why wings are there for these pollen grains. Okay, now observe this particular picture here, how the pollen grains are moving out of the male cones, and these pollen grains will able to fly because of its presence of the two kinds of the wings on it. Okay, and these wings are created out of the outer layer, which is called as the exine. Okay, so the anemophilous type of the pollination is there, which is the pollination due to the wind, and for this wind pollination, these pollen grains are very well adapted by creating the two sessi. Okay, that is the two wings in their exine layer. Then the dehiscence occurs in the dry and the warm climate. Of course, the dry climate is required, and through this dry climate, through the air current, it will carry the pollen grains right to the female gametophyte. Okay, you should remember that the Pinus plants are the monoecious plants, and the female cone and the male cone is developing on the same tree. Okay, so the two wings are there in the pollen grains. See the female cones now. Now the female cones are produced in a pairs or in a clusters in the axils of the scaly leaves. Okay, so the female cones are also born on the axil of the scaly leaves, just like the male cones, and these are also created in the clusters or in the pairs. Then the female cones matures very slowly. Okay, when we compare it with the male cones, the female cone starts to develop slowly, and it will mature slowly. Okay, it will take time for the female cones to get matured in this particular pinus trees. Now in the first year, the young cone is small, that is 1 to 2 centimeter in length only. Then it is very soft and compact and red in color. See what happens in the first year. See, it will take a nearly 3 years to completely mature this female strobili. See, in the first year, it is only 1 to 2 centimeter in length, and it is soft in nature, compact and red in color. While in the second year, the cone is comparatively larger, that is 5 to 8 centimeter in length, and it will be the woody and the compact and green in color. Okay, that the color changes, and right from the soft, it got woody in nature, and the height changes from 1 to 2 centimeter to the 5 to 8 centimeter. So in the first year of the growth in the female strobili, it is 1 to 2 centimeter only, soft and the compact structure with a red in color. While in the second year, what is the nature of the female cone? That it is the 5 to 8 centimeter, it is woody in nature, and it is now green in color. Earlier it is red in color, later it is green in color. Now the fully mature third year cone, okay, in the third year, the cone when get fully mature, it is very larger, that is 15 to 16 centimeter in length. Generally 50, when we talk about the 60 centimeter, that literally means it is 2 feet. Okay, so it is largely grow in a third year, and it becomes woody, loose and brown in color. So final color of the cone is the brown color, just like this. This is the third year female cone, and it is nearly turned into the brown color. Okay, and it is now very loose, not the compact structure, it's a woody structure, and it is 15 to 60 centimeter in length. Here, the megasporophyll, inside what we have is the megasporophylls are separated from each other. See how the megasporophylls are got separated from the each other, and due to the elongation of the cone axis. So whatever the cone axis is there, it continuously got elongated, and these are microsporophylls, for that matter, for this very reason, got separated from the one another in the third year. So in the first year, second year, and the third year, how the growth occurs there, you should remember it very carefully. Okay, the very important is the length, that is 1 to 2 centimeter, then 5 to 8 centimeter, and then the 15 to 60 centimeter. Due to increase in this length, the microsporophylls were quietly got separated from the one another. Okay, so the fully matured third year cone is very large, 15 to 60 centimeter in length, woody, and it is loose now. Okay, in the first 2 years it was compact, but now it is very loose because it has to receive the pollen grains, right, in every megasporophyll, right, in order to achieve the pollination. See, the female cones in the pinus will represent the compound shoot. Okay, compound shoot is there once it got modified into the female cone, and it is complicated structure. Yes, of course, there is a complication. There is a female cone. There are many megasporophylls. Inside megasporophylls, we have the megasporangium. Inside megasporangium, we will have the megaspore mother cells. Right. So all this is a complex structure, and this female cone is composed of the central axis, and 80 to 90 megasporophylls are there. Just like microsporophylls, which can be 60 to 150. The megasporophylls are generally 80 to 90. 80 to 90 megasporophylls were there. Axillary to the Bragg scale or the scaly scales are and arranged spirally. How these megasporophylls are arranged? These are arranged spirally on the main axis, female strobili. Okay, so when we talk about the female strobili, it has a growth in the first year, second year, and the third year. While it got fully matured, it is now loose, brown in color, and it will show the separated megasporophyll due to increase in the length. And these are separated megasporophyll will create the compound shoot, which is very complicated structure made up of the 80 to 90 megasporophylls, which are arranged spirally. Okay, now consider the female cone replaces the terminal bud. Whatever the terminal buds of the long shoots are there, these are long shoots, terminal buds are replaced by these female cones. Okay, just like the male cones are replacing the dwarf shoot, the female cones are replacing the long shoots. This is very important. You should remember it very carefully while talking about the reproduction in the pinus, that the female cones are replacing the long shoots while the male cones are replacing the dwarf shoots. Okay, and are the modified long shoots. Okay, modified long shoots, we can call it this particular reproductive shoot as a modified long shoot. Right, in the beginning, the female cones are protected by the involucre or the bracts. Okay, whatever the bracts are there, bracts are there in order to protect this particular cone structure. Whenever it is young, okay, when it was soft in the first year, then the bracts are covered this particular structure to protect it from the surrounding environment. Now the cone has the average length of the 1 to 2 centimeter in the beginning, right? Then later it will grow up to the 2 feet, right? The cone axis elongates, right, during pollination. Now, when the pollination time nears itself, then the main axis will got elongated, and due to this elongation, the megasporophylls will got separated from the one another. Okay, and the cone protrudes beyond the envelope of the scales, and it receives the pollen grains. Okay, so it will increase in length. Generally, up to the 60 centimeter length is there. So once it attains the maximum height, it will come out of the plant, and it can easily receive the pollen grains which are coming by the wind. Okay, because whatever the wind is there, this wind will take this particular pollen grain to the megasporophylls. Okay, so it is very important to have the height. Okay, because this cone should have should separate itself from the parent plant by achieving the certain height, and once it got the certain height like this, it can take the pollen grains which are coming from the wind. Okay, in the ICS 2018 Indian Civil Service Mains, right? Describe the male and female cones in the Pinus. Okay, you have to describe the male cone of the Pinus and the female cone of the Pinus. Just I have told you that they don't use the species. So in general, in the Pinus genus, whatever the male cone and female cone is there, you have to draw it, and you have to explain the characteristics of the male cone and the female cone. So this is very important. Okay, the content is very important. You should take it very seriously. You should note it down, and you should revise it regularly. All right, so such a type of simple questions were asked by the UPSC mains, that you have to just describe the male cone and the female cone, right? Okay, now consider the Pinus, the which is the wind pollinated. Wind pollinated literally means the anemophilous. Okay, now let us consider how the pollination is there. Now the pale yellow colored pollen grains are released into the air. See, air is the main transporting agent in the when we talk about the pollination in the pollen grains, pollination in the Pinus, because they are the anemophilous plants. Anemophilous literally means they use the wind or the air for their pollination purpose. Okay, now these pollen grains are released into the air in a large quantity, so that pine forest appear yellow at the time of the pollination. See, such a large quantity of the pollen grains were released by these particular pine trees. Okay, these pine trees release this particular pollen grains so in such a large quantity, and due to this yellow color of these particular pollen grains, they popularly called as the sulfur showers. Okay, which occurs especially in the spring when the pine trees are shaken strongly by the winds. Okay, so they create the large number of pollen grains, and the very basic reason for creating such a large number of pollen grains is that because majority of the pollen grains get wasted here. Okay, because the wind pollination or the air pollination is not that much simple. It is dependent on the abiotic thing, that is the air or the wind, and majority of the pollen grains will not received by the megasporophylls, and that is why the 80 to 90% of the pollen grains get wasted in the process. And that is why, to have certain chances of the pollination, these pine trees produce the large number of pollen grains, and once in the pollination season, these pollen grains shaken by the wind, they create the sulfur showers. Okay, they are famously called as sulfur showers because the yellowing occurs in and around the trees. Okay, so around the trees, the pollen grains are traveling in the air, and they are, due to this yellow color, they are called as the sulfur showers. Okay, because the strong wind is taking all the pollen grains from the one plant to the other plant, or the same plant, right? But the pollen grains, due to its yellow color, they are described as a sulfur showers. Okay, so see, after the pollination, once the pollination occurred, if the successfully pollen grains has reached to the female gametophyte, then the pollination is successful here, right? Through the air, these pollen grains are traveled to the female gametophyte, and this process is called as the pollination. Now, originally the cones are pale green, but about the time of pollination, the female cones become reddish to purple, right? And finally, it becomes green to the purplish. So, species to species variation is there. Some species show the different types of color, while other species showing the different types of colors. Now the fertilization, see, once the pollen landed on the female gametophyte, the pollen tubes just before the fertilization grows rapidly and reaches the neck of archegonium. Okay, so see, this is the LS of the ovule in the Pinus, because the Pinus will show the female cone. Now this female cone will possess the megasporophyll, right? What it possesses? It will possess the megasporophyll, and this megasporophyll will have the ovule. And how this ovule will looks like? This ovule looks like this. See, it will show the presence of the female gametophyte. This portion is called as the nucellus. Then we have endosperm. Then we have the archegonia at the center here. Okay, and once the pollen grain landed here, through the micropylar end, it will give its pollen tube. Okay, pollen tube will reach to the female gametophyte, or say archegonia, or the egg. Okay, So once the pollen grain landed on this particular ovule, through the micropylar region, it will extend its particular pollen tube, and this pollen tube will discharge all its content to fertilize this particular egg. Okay, so the pollen tube, just before the fertilization, it will grow rapidly, and it will try to reach to the neck of the archegonium. Now see, the tip of the dense cytoplasm, the tip has the whatever the pollen tube is there. Consider this is an pollen, and the pollen tube is formed like this. The tip of this pollen tube will have the very dense cytoplasm. Large number of starch grains should be there. The nucleus should be there. Stalk cell is there, and the two male gametes envelop in the common cytoplasmic sheath. So the two male gametes were also present here, and these two male gametes will later fertilize the egg. Okay, now see, the pollen tube penetrates into the neck of the archegonium and discharges content at the tip of the cytoplasm of the female gametes. So once it will release the two gametes, it will combine with the egg, and due to the combination with the egg, it will create the zygote. Okay, now consider this diagram. This is the Pinus tree, and this will create the female cone and the male cone. Both are diploid, right? The female cone will create the megasporangium, while the male cone will create the microsporangium. This megasporangium will create the megaspore mother cell, and the microsporangium will create the microspore mother cell. From the megaspore mother cell, through the meiosis, megaspores will got created, and as the meiosis occurred, it will become the haploid, and the microspore mother cell will create the microspores in the process of meiosis, and hence create the haploid microspores. Now this megaspore will create the embryo sac, while the microspore will create the male gamete, and this embryo sac will create the archegonium, and archegonium will have the egg. Now this egg and this male gamete will fuse together to create the fertilizer, to have the fertilization, and once the fertilization occur there, this will form the zygote, and zygote later will create in the development will create the oospore. Oospore will got converted into the embryo, and embryo will got converted into the seed, and this seed will germinate to create the new Pinus plant. So this is how the reproduction or the life cycle occurs in the Pinus plant. The Pinus plant shows the sporophytic as well as gametophytic generation, but the gametophytic generation is very short. The male when the male gamete and the female gamete is formed, these male and female gametes representing the gametophytic generation, while the sporophytic generation is the main dominant generation. So we are discussing about the reproduction in the Pinus, and how the reproduction in the Pinus occurs, and how there is a small gametophytic generation and the large sporophytic generation is there. We have seen the sporophytic generation is always diploid, while the gametophytic generation is always haploid. Okay, so now see, once the seed is formed, let us talk about the seeds of the Pinus. See, in most of the species, the hard and the woody mature female cones opens to release the seeds. Okay, once the seed is got created on the parent plant, it got created in the female cone, because all is happened on the female cone. On the female cone, the pollen grains were received, the fertilization occurs on the female cone, and after fertilization, the embryo develop on the female cone, and from this embryo, the seed is also developed on the female cone. Okay, now majority of the time, these female cones will open and release the seed. For example, in the Pinus roxburghi or the Pinus velissiana, in these plants, the female cone will open and it will release the seed, and this seed will create the new plant. While in others, the seeds are released only after the cones falls on the ground or the rot. Okay, so in other species, what happens? The whole female cone falls on the ground and it got broken, or it get rots, and after that it will release the particular seed. Okay, so there are some female cones in the Pinus which release the seeds right from the plant, but there are some others which falls on the ground. The all female cone will fall on the ground and the seed will liberated after the rotting. Okay, while in a few species, for example, Pinus lexilis, the cones remains on the tree for the several years. See, cones is not shedding from the tree in several pine species, and they remain on the tree for the several years and open only after scorched by the forest fires. That is, forest fires are essentially required to scorch this particular female cones. So once the forest fire is there, the scorching occurs in the female cones, and the seeds are liberated through this pollen through these female cones. Okay, so seeds are look like this, and these seeds will germinate to create the new plant. So once the seed is formed there, how it will release from the Pinus tree, it will differ from species to species. Okay, now consider the chief economic importance of this particular Pinuses. Okay, what is the economic importance of these Pinus trees? See, the economic value of the pines is in the construction and the paper products industries. Okay, so we use the wood in the construction purposes. Okay, the wood is secondary wood and it is durable wood, and we can use in the construction. Plus the paper products were largely dependent on these pines. Okay, so the majority of the time, the tree trunk is used to create the paper products. Okay, they were also important sources of the turpentines. Okay, turpentines is the secondary metabolite. The main group is terpenes. Okay, generally it is called as terpenes, and these terpenes are largely used in the perfumes. Okay, so majority of the times these particular Pinus species has the certain kind of oil. Okay, which is very scented oil, and these are, that is why these are the sources of turpentine, rosin, oils, and the wood tars. Okay, then they are edible pine seeds are there which are sold commercially as a pines nuts. Okay, and in other words these are also famous as a pinons. Okay, these are the pinons. This is how the pine seeds are directly sold in the market to consume. Okay, which is produced by the several species. So edible seeds are there which can be sold in the market. Then there is a industrial importance, plus there is a perfumery importance to the pines trees as well. Okay, now consider many pines or the pine species are cultivated as ornamentals. Of course, why not? See, observe, these are the pines. These all trees are the pines, and how they beautifully shape themselves. And due to this particular shape, they were used as ornamentals. Okay, including the black, white Himalayan stone pines and the some of the planted reforestation project or for the windbreaks. Okay, see how we are using these particular pine trees as ornamental. Then we can use them in the reforestation project, right? As you know, there are many habitats on which these pinus trees can grow. So if there are no forest, or if there is a forest which were existed earlier and but it is lost somehow, then we want to recreate this forest. Then for this purpose we can use this particular pinus trees, or they can even use to create the windbreaks. Okay, so if the winds are directly coming from the one side and you want to distract this particular wind, then we can plant the pine trees in between. Okay, as a windbreak. Okay, so it will not harm our crops or houses. Okay, so they can be used to create the windbreaks as well. They can be used in the reforestation project, right? And they are used in the several other ways as well. Now see the pine's leaf oil. Okay, whatever the leaf oil is coming out of these pinus trees, they are used medicinally. Okay, and is a distillation product of the leaves. Okay, from the leaves, by the process of distillation, the leaf oil is taken out, and this leaf oil is used medicinally. Then the charcoal or the lamp black fuel gases are other distillation products. Okay, these charcoal or the lamp black and the fuel gases were also obtained from this particular pinus tree. So all these are the economic importance of these pinus. Okay, so this is all about the pinus and the coniferals. So this is all about this topic. Okay, thank you very much for watching this video. Please like this video, share this video with your friends who are studying the botany, and if you haven't subscribed to the Botany channel yet, please subscribe to the Botany channel for UPSC examination. Again, thank you very much for giving your time. See you in the next video lecture. Thank you.